So I did the adult thing and went and spoke to my doctor and... Hello again team, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin and welcome back for my week 35 plan with me. In today's video I'm going to be setting up for August 26th through to the 1st of September, but before we get into that, as per usual, just having a look at this week. So as you'll remember from my last weekly plan with me, my challenge for this setup was highlighters only. And although at the start of the video I said to myself that I wasn't really going to use the Frixons or Frixions that much, I ended up pretty much using those exclusively, and the only other highlighter I used was the mild liner to do all of the line work. So far so good though. Those erasable highlighters have held up well so far, but of course I do make sure not to leave my journal in sunny places, so my book never really heats up that much. I'm not minding using this weekly. I don't think the colours are quite my preferred palette. And to be honest, over the past couple of days I haven't really been using my journal all that much at all. I've been quite busy and, of course, as it naturally is, the busier I get and the more helpful my journal would be, the less I use it. So I do have a fair bit of space left on this one as of current, but I'm hoping that I'll get it a bit more filled in before the end of the week. The challenge for week 35 is to do a one-page weekly, and as per usual, all of the equipment that I use in today's setup is linked in the description box below. Given the fact that people did appreciate me not having a voiceover and rather just kind of trying to talk to the camera throughout my plan with me last week, I'm going to try and do that again this week, but I am a little bit more pressed for time, so in theory, today's video will be a little bit shorter and hopefully easier to edit. So, turning over, I left myself this page here to do my one-page weekly, so this is where we're working today. I don't have any strict ideas about how I want to set this weekly up just yet, so it is going to be kind of a build the plane as we fly it kind of a deal. But hopefully I end up with something that's functional. As I usually do, I'm also going to be answering questions throughout today's video, and our first question comes from Zesty Jester, who asked, have you considered doing a Zentangles themed weekly? Zentangles are like one of my favourite things, and I've actually already done a Zentangles weekly sometime last year. I'll just go grab my old journal and see if I can find it. So I think this was my 4th bullet journal. There we go. So this was my Zentangles weekly where I did this kind of banner or panel at the top using different Zentangles to fill in each of these kind of triangular sections I had radiating from the center. The nice part about this weekly was I didn't really have a lot going on, so it didn't matter so much that I'd only left myself a really small amount of space to write things out. I probably wouldn't go for a weekly of this style again, just because there really wasn't enough room down here, but if I had have probably spaced these panels out a little better so there wasn't like 2 spaces in between each one, it would have probably been a lot more usable. As I lay the washi tape at the top and bottom of the page, a question that we have from Zana Patek. Tell me if I'm saying that wrong. But they've asked, I remember a couple of weeks ago you talking about a slight dispute with your neighbours about your home/apartment. How's that working out for you? Well, the long story short of that is that it's not. I can't even remember how much I told you guys. So, there was that whole issue where they drilled into our wall. Yeah? I think I mentioned that part. So they, with their painters have drilled into the wood that lines our roof, like mine and my partner's place's roof. And so we obviously had an issue with that. In terms of a resolution of that, haven't really gotten to that stage just yet. But it has gotten worse. So since then what has happened is that we told the painters they couldn't go ahead with any more painting that required them to hang off our roof because, well, it's our roof. Sorry, I have hiccups at the moment. Anyways. So we told them they weren't allowed to go ahead with any more painting until we had received a invoice from those guys in the name of the body corporate rather than in the name of the next door neighbour. And so we never received that. But one day, the next week, we came home and they had finished all the painting work. So my partner called up their company being like, hey, what the heck, we never got that invoice. And turns out what happened is that our next door neighbours had called the painting company, said, you know, we're hiring you, you should just continue with the work. The painters said, well, no, we can't continue with the work until we have approval from your neighbours, us. And so what my neighbours did was lied to the painters, saying that they had received our approval so that the painters could go ahead. So, admittedly foolishly, the painters trusted them on that, considering all of the other shady crap they've been doing. Anyway, so the painters went ahead and finished off their painting work, assuming that we had given our approval to our neighbours when we didn't. So, yeah. In terms of dealing with all of that, I have taken a step back from it. My partner's looking at ways forward with all of that kind of stuff. And hopefully we get some kind of a resolution, but I honestly don't even know what we're going to get out of it. Because they've already finished the painting. They've sealed up the holes that they used to drill into our wood lining our roof. Getting in touch with our neighbours is literally the most impossible thing to do ever. And so we're kind of just in a limbo kind of situation with how all that's going. Yeah. Not ideal, kind of stress-inducing, not favourable, but that's where we're at the moment. Today I'm going to do my line work using a Tombow, but our next question comes from Amy Bennett, who asked, do you have a September theme / colour scheme picked yet? Don't quite have a colour scheme yet, but I'm thinking of doing a space theme. Recently I've been seeing some really cute pictures over on Instagram where people have done space themes, and I feel like I'm getting a little bit of FOMO, so I want to give it a try myself. Before I go in with this pen, I'm just going to count out my spacing, because remember, we measure twice, cut once, and although I'm not cutting, pen is just as final as cutting paper is, so measuring first. My chair is being really creaky today. Like, could you stop? You're ruining the beautiful sound of my video! Alright. And I think instead of doing solid lines this week, I'm going to do the dots and dashes that I like to do. In terms of our next question, Daphne said, I swear the more I watch you, the funnier you get, and I love it. Oh, thank you. And on that note, are there any comedians that you like? That's tricky, because I don't actually know... This is going to sound silly. I don't know who's considered to be a comedian anymore. Like, you have comedy actors. Do they count as comedians, or are we thinking, like, stand-up comedians? Tim Minchin still counts as a comedian, right? I like Tim Minchin. I don't really that's not a word. I don't really watch a lot of comedians, so it's hard to actually think of any. If you guys have favourite comedians though, I'd be interested in checking those out. So if you have a favourite comedian or somebody in particular that you think is funny, let us know in the comments below so that I can go and actually check some out. Sorry, that's a really unsatisfying answer, but yeah, I can't think of any. I feel like recently I've had like a lot of just simple spreads that I've been doing, and I also feel like they're not the most exciting things to watch, but they are nice to have. I don't know, it's just nice to have something that's nice and simple and straightforward to use in my journal, that I don't feel like I have to go and fill out all of these little pieces and parts to make it look full. It's essentially just like a grid where I write my stuff down. I kind of appreciate that. I also know I'm not talking a lot during this section, and that's just because this takes long enough without me also trying to narrate over it. Plus, I'm probably going to be a lot more likely to stuff something up if I'm trying to talk at the same time as drawing. Then I think I'm also going to put a vertical line in here too, just to separate the two sections. As you guys can probably guess, this is where I'm going to have all of my events for the week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then this is going to be my space for my running to-do list. I've been really appreciating having a space for a running to-do list, as you can probably tell, considering the past couple of weeks I've had them in pretty much every single one. I don't think there's, yeah, running to-do list. Scribble City Weekly, running to-do list. So it's kind of just what I need at the moment. While I put that vertical line in, Jessica asked, if you're not an English teacher, what do you teach? So I teach secondary science, mainly chemistry and physics. I'm also my school's CAS coordinator, so CAS being creativity, activity, and service, and that's kind of like the holistic part of the International Baccalaureate program, or the IB diploma. So I'm in charge of making sure that the kids are getting not only good stuff happening in terms of academics, but they're branching out into areas where they get to develop other skills. So skills related to creativity, activity, and service. Line work done, so time for erasing pencil lines and putting in headings. Before I get into that though, Chosani, please tell me if I'm saying that wrong again, asked, do you have any spreads or spread ideas about house or place hunting? So when we were hunting for a house, I did actually set one of these up. I'll just go grab that one. So this was part of my long-term collections journal, back when I used to use a long-term collections journal. This one here. So this is the page that I set up so that we could write down all of the places we went and looked at. To be completely honest, this is certainly not all of the places we went and looked at, because I kind of got sick of writing things down. I think I tried to cram too much information on here that wasn't really necessary. But things I did write down was the address, where it was, so what suburb, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and what kind of car parking it had, so whether it had a garage or a private driveway or whatever. The RV and IV, what type of sale it was, my thoughts about the place, my partner's thoughts about the place, and then whether we actually ended up pursuing that or not. I also think it's really weird looking back on this. So the ones we pursued were the ones where we had the best feelings about it, both of us. So double green, yes. Double green, yes. And then this one where we had a double yellow, we also proceeded. Or rather, pursued it. But not this one where we had a yellow and a green. Or that one where we had a yellow and a green. Can't say that our actions made any sense whatsoever. And I probably would have liked to actually have this one filled in more, just so I had this page to give me the best representation of how many places we actually did go see before we ended up finding this one. Oh well. I think that's all the questions I had on last week's video. As I mentioned, I'm kind of a little pressed for time, so if I did miss your question, please let me know in the comments of this video. I really appreciate that you guys leave me questions to answer, and I want to talk about things you guys are interested in. So while I go and write down some titles, as I talked about at the very start of this video, earlier this week I did end up going and seeing my doctor, finally. So if you've been following that saga, you'll know that recently I went to the doctor because I had the flu, and I spoke to them about the fact that my periods are kind of a lot more regular than I felt they should be, in the sense that I get my period every 2 weeks. And they recommended that I go and get an ultrasound just to make sure that everything down there was okay. So when I was at the radiologist or ultrasound clinic or whatever, they asked me if there was anything that my doctor was looking for in particular, but of course we weren't really looking for something specifically, it was just making sure everything was okay, so I said no. And at the end of my session, they mentioned that I had a lot of follicles, and I didn't really know what that meant. I'm like, oh, okay, sweet. Excellent. They didn't seem concerned, so I wasn't concerned. And when I was talking to my colleagues about this, they looked it up and they just said, oh, no, follicles are what you get when your ovaries are preparing to release an egg. So I'm just like, oh, okay, sweet. So I'm just really fertile. Ha 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 ha, no. So I finally got around to booking in with my doctor to talk about the results that they'd found. And so on Tuesday I went in to go see them. Went in to go see them. And my doctor has now told me that I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. He essentially told me that my ovaries look like bubble wrap. I like to think my ovaries are just overachieving, because although most people have 1 to 2 follicles per ovary, my ovaries have 18 each. So yeah, bubble wrap ovaries, which is super great. Not really. Anyway, one thing he did say to me that was, I probably shouldn't take it in the way that I'm taking it, but whatever, I'm going to take it this way. So he said that people who have polycystic ovarian syndrome often have a tendency to gain weight and find it hard to lose it. So I'm like, okay, sweet. So it's not my fault that I'm like chunk city. It's because my ovaries are fucked. I know that's not the case. I mean, like, it's partially a cause of why I find weight loss hard and why I carry, as he kept saying, a little extra weight. Not so much a little, more like a lottle. Anyway, so at least now I've got that sorted. I know what's what with that, I guess. I actually have a reason that I have those way too frequent periods. He also said that it's good information to have just in case I was ever trying to start a family, so that I don't go through like 18 months of trying to get pregnant and not having any success and then going to the doctor to be like, hey, what's happening? Now I already know that it's probably going to be quite difficult for me to get pregnant if I ever wanted to, so. But he also did mention that it is pretty common, and doing some extra research on the internet, it seems that about 10% of women have, what is it, PCOS? PCOS? So poll for today, if you're a woman, or, I mean, you know, if you have ovaries, do you have PCOS? Only if you feel comfortable sharing. It's just interesting to know how many people are watching also have that. Other fabulous features of our doctor's appointment were the fact that I'm pre-diabetic, but I kind of already knew that. But he's now given me medication for that, so that's cool. Now I just have to make sure that I'm actually getting up in time for breakfast so that I can eat breakfast and take that medication. Sweet. Here we go, so 1 page weekly, still pretty simple. Just got my space for each of the days of the week in terms of events, and then a space for my running to-do list. And as I have been doing, I'm going to just go in now with my Pit Artist pen and write out all of the events that I know I have coming up. Along with the PCOS question, I'd also be curious to know, with me doing these more simple weeklies as of late, do you still find these Plan With Me's enjoyable to watch? As I've mentioned before, I don't like the idea of giving you guys videos that feel stale or something that you've kind of already seen before. So along with the poll that I have related to this one, if you had any thoughts, comments or feels you wanted to share about that topic, I'd really love to hear your feedback as well. Thank you for watching, team. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and if you wanted to see more from me, feel free to go check out another one of my videos. Until next time, bye!